Hey everyone, welcome back to the Reptile Room. I'm Joe if you didn't know, and today we're going to talk about plated lizards. It makes me laugh. Okay, now I've got to do dishes after that. Alright, so I want to talk about our plated lizards that we have down here. We have two different species of these cool guys. This is one of them. This is... Oh, there she goes, tucking back in there. See her little face? So that one is a Sudan Plated Lizard, the Gerrhosaurus Major, the giant plated lizard. They're from Sudan and Africa and whatnot. We also have another species, if they're still out. This is a Madagascan Plated Lizard. Or the Western Girdled Lizard. You know, I'm not entirely sure about that. Keeping track of all the different scientific names and whatnot, and where they're all from, is a little bit challenging, especially for some of these rarer ones. Now, we're going to go back over to the major plateds, because this is the male. You can tell he's a male based on his colors. He has the blue throat and the red sides. You can also tell based on their vent, like the vent, so his butthole, essentially. So they have different scale patterns back there. I can't remember exactly. I'll put the link in the description if I remember to where I have that information or where I found it. But it took me a long time to find a male one. Had to order him and get him shipped in. And the females are pretty cool. This is our other female, and when you see her, you're going to notice a little bit of damage. So don't judge there, I didn't do it. But, you can see this is our other female. She's really cool. You see this chunk taken out of her tail there? It's healing up really nicely. But what has happened... Here, it looks a little bit better, this one behind me. So what has happened is that the females tend to be very territorial. That's my experience. I have no idea if anyone else is experiencing anything different than me. But the females seem to absolutely hate each other during breeding season. Both species are this way, it seems. We'll get into the other ones here in just a minute. But I came down one day and there was her tail was chunked off there, and she's doing much better. She's still doing the eating thing and whatnot. Does she see herself? She's eating just fine. She's hanging on there. Here, let me see. So you can see her little vent area there. It's the middle scales, I do believe, but she's doing very good. You can see the tail is still attached, which is... I thought it was going to come off, that whole end was going to come off, which was not going to be fun. But, you know, I guess it is what it is. When the damage happens, you kind of just have to go on with it. We stuck her in there. She's still healing up. It's just a clear plastic tote that we have been keeping nice and clean and keeping paper towels in there. We soak her quite often so that she stays nice and hydrated. Feed her just the same as the other ones. As far as feeding these guys, what I have noticed is that these guys like earthworms. This is for the Gerrhosaurus Major specifically. They like earthworms, mealworms, superworms, dubia roaches, and I see other people able to feed theirs fruits and veggies. Mine don't seem to care one bit about fruits or veggies. They won't even touch them. We try. You know, we still try. I think it's best practice to offer up all that stuff. But they do not seem to care one bit about any of that stuff. So that is pretty interesting. But, you know, we keep trying. So they really seem to like earthworms, like the giant night crawlers and whatnot. But this is their main enclosure. You can see, we'll just do a nice little fly over here for you. We've got you know, their hot basking area over here. We have a cool side, and I've got a water area. It looks like we've been seeing some digging happen from Saphira here. She is the largest female that we have. It would be cool if she laid some eggs, but I don't know. So this is what we would normally keep them in, but after she decided to try to remove the tail off this other one, obviously we pulled it over here, stuck it in this enclosure, and you can see the male, he's stuck over here. Sorry, man, woo, doing this mirror reaction. Sorry, I got some weird lighting, shades going on, but small room, so it is what it is. Bear with me. So he's down in here, banished because she was bullying him around, running him around. Again, we feed them all the same sorts of things. We keep them all fed up. But Saphira this year, for some reason, just decided to be a royal monster. And we had to separate them all up. You know, this is Ronnie's big enclosure. Go check out that video. But he's outside chilling in his enclosure out there. So they are separated, and that is totally fine. We'll probably put them back together here, or I will bust out another enclosure. It looks like this guy is out. And then again, apologies, I don't have a light in this enclosure yet. If anyone wants to send me one, shoot me a message. But this is his own enclosure here. We are starting, and now I'm gonna tell you, we're going back to the Madagascans, or the Western Girdled Lizard, which seems to fall in the same family. Any biologist can absolutely correct me in the comments down below. I don't claim to be one, I just like keeping these cool things. The story on these is we found them at the local reptile show here in Cincinnati and picked up a group of 4. They were all wild caught and imported. Don't buy them like that. Let me buy them like that. And we're down to 3. So very brutal. There was a brutal murder. We were keeping them all 4 together, which they were together when we bought them, and then they were together for months while we were learning about them and trying to get everything nice and perfect for them. Came down one day and there was a body. That was unfortunate, and it was one of these guys. It was the ladies. The ladies seemed to be the angry, very protective ones of these groups, all of these species. I would assume, from my experience, all plated lizards are going to follow this sort of trend where the females are bigger and tend to be the brutal runners of their enclosures. So this is looking a little thin, but I know they've been eating non-stop. But look at the cool pattern back there. Super cool. Fun little lizards. Very fast. These guys like to dig all the time. This one tends to live underneath this. You can see this enclosure is also pretty large. It's 3 feet by 3 feet by 18 inches. Oh, this is the big one, and I am assuming, and you know what? I came down here earlier and cleaned this glass, and I'll tell you what, they have crapped all over the glass again. So this is what I believe. Focus, camera. Or don't focus on it. That's totally fine, I guess. You can see its shadow in there. It's a little bit challenging, but that one we believe is a female. I believe it's a female. It has a slightly bluer throat. And then the other one, I'm going to guess, since it's a little bit smaller, has an orange throat, more gray, plain red sides and whatnot. So this one up here is similar to the other big one that you saw. Or saw the shadow of, I'm sorry. And they were chasing them around and whatnot. So here's a good example of the burrowing. See that hole back there underneath this big tree? So they like to burrow a lot. So if you like a lizard that's out all the time, this is not the lizard for you. But I will say they're very cool, they're very fast, and I bet with a little bit more work, they would be very personable and come out to you and hang out and enjoy your company. But we aren't working with them a whole ton. We just like observing and keeping an eye on them. Feeding them's really fun. They'll eat off tongs, all of them will, which is great. And again, they just need a lot of space. They're very food motivated right now. Here, get you a good view where they're kind of in the back of me here. But you see the enclosure is really large. You need something with a lot of floor space for both of these species. It goes for both of them. They've got hot spots over here. It's a 12 by 12 piece of tile with heat tape on the bottom of it, and they'll bask under, they'll dig down to it and just chill out on it. They need a light. This is not one of my nice fancy 24/7 lights. This one's just a white light on off. It would be great to upgrade them all to the Fluval lights like I have on his enclosure up there. If you can see it, it's really pretty. It fades in and out throughout the day. They need some water. They need a nice thick substrate so that they can burrow. Again, this is for both species. And a lot of hides. Now, it seems to me that they only like one of the opposite sex with them at a time. So one female, one male. And it seems to be the case in this other enclosure over here, which is 6 feet long and 4 feet, or 6 feet long, 2 feet deep, 2 feet tall. That still wasn't enough space with all the additional hides and whatnot that we stuck in there. So, take with it what you will. They're probably better off one-on-one, if I'm honest. But I want to try to breed them. I think it'd be really cool. As far as I can tell, no one has accomplished a captive breeding group. So when we got these girdled lizards, the Madagascan plateds, that same day we brought them down and hatched, or they laid eggs. So we hatched one, unfortunately did not hatch the other one, and unfortunately again, the one that did hatch did not make it past 3 months. And that's probably due to a lot of stress factors that were caused from having them being wild caught, shipped over, being in these different enclosures, being trucked around the United States to these different shows. And we did what we could here, and we tried our best. And that's all you can ever try if you do, if you do try to hatch out your own stuff. It is very difficult when you have very uncommon species, because even asking friends for help, they're like, not a lot of information. Check this dude out. Look at him. Look at that blue throat. He really is fun. Again, that's the male plated lizard, and that's his, bachelor pad for now. I wish, there's Saphira. She's starting to poke her head out a little bit more. She is the most active of the giants. She is, I'm going to say, probably 16 to 18 inches long, and I'm not sure on a weight, but, she's pretty fun to watch. Oh, one of the other things, these guys being some brutal species, they eat rat pups. Like we get frozen thawed rat pups that are locally produced and harvested here, not by us, but they seem to really like them. Even a little bit bigger, they'll just choke them down. And so I feed those about once a month, and then the rest of the time they get earthworms and other insects as well. And I do a lot of bioactive enclosures in here, some substrates, so the insects that escape, they just kind of live in here with them, and these little guys like to go in and find them and chuck and scarf them down. Look at that cool pattern. These guys really are cool. Something told me to pick them up when I saw them, so we did, and I think they're really fun. So if you do happen to find some, they are not going to be captive bred. Don't let anyone tell you that. They just aren't. Both species. You won't find them captive bred unless you can get some sort of a proof on that. Here, let me set this down for a sec. Whew, my arm's getting tired. So try to find them captive bred if you can, but they most likely just won't be captive bred. you will want to find some nice chunky ones. You want to keep them nice and, you know, sprayed down and whatnot. You want to give them as much space as you possibly can. That's the same for all of the animals that we keep down here. As much space as you possibly can. I don't think that there's a single enclosure out there that's off the shelf that you can buy that's going to be big enough. I'm probably wrong, but again, if I'm shopping in that realm and I find it there $2,000 to $5,000 for that enclosure, to me that's not off the shelf. I'm also not willing to spend that kind of money on the enclosure. I build all my own enclosures for a lot less. I just spend a little bit of time with them. And I think that's a better way to go about it because then you learn more about your enclosure. The plastic or PVC enclosures are probably fine. I have not yet personally owned them or tested them out, but to me it seems like the wooden enclosures that I built can retain humidity and regulate that humidity a little bit better. And then I use nice thick acrylic on them because I have access to it. I still have a couple of sheets left over from a previous job that I used to have, so it's kind of nice. I get a little bit of use out of it still. So those are a few things that you want to keep in mind. Big enclosures, all the light that you can do. Yes, they do need UVB fixtures so that they can bask and whatnot. They're a very hardy animal, so you're not really going to have, like if they jump or escape out of your hands, they're going to be fine most likely when they hit the ground. Same can't be said for smaller species of lizard. You do have to keep in mind that if you have babies, they are going to be very fragile, and they are the size of my thumb. Again, you can check out that video to the, I'll link that towards the end here, if you want to see that little dude from the Zonosaurus. Zonosaurus Laticaudatus and Gerrhosaurus Major. Or I've also seen people saying they're Broadlysaurus now. Again, not a biologist. I don't really care about the scientific name too much, because even when you Google those scientific names, not much information comes up. Especially with these guys, just not a lot of information. Not that you should trust Wikipedia, but there's on everything, but that is a source of information for a lot of people, and there's just, it's like one sentence on these guys. Last time I checked. So, feeders, you want your insects, your earthworms, your, insects and whatnot still, dubias, superworms, that sort of thing, horned worms. But, again, a lot of space. They're very active. They do run around. You need a lot of hides and whatnot. For these guys, you can do the small pinky mice, like I was saying. It's like they've got to be fresh born, essentially. For these guys, they got to be able to, anything that can fit between their jaws so they don't choke or whatnot. Now, when you feed them those pinkies, they will be very violent with them. They'll rip them around, so if you're not into seeing that, maybe don't get them. Again, they're a very brutal type of lizard, I would say. That's my experience. I'm sure other people would say otherwise, but these guys murdered one of their own, and these tried to take off the tail. It's probably just around breeding season when that's a thing, so if you want to keep multiples, you want to keep one male, one female, and even if you do keep multiples in the same enclosure, you have to have the ability to have another enclosure available, so like we do here, so that you can separate them out when you do run into issues, because you will. So again, we have the trio over here. They had stayed together for 2 years, 2 straight years, not a single issue out of them. And then this year they, nearly removed a tail, and then the male it's a whole thing, So you have to have an alternative plan. Not everyone should keep multiples of these. There are quite a few people that I follow on Instagram who have their Gerrhosaurus Majors just like free roam in their house, which I think is super cool. They get along with their dog, their cat, and whatnot. That is not a risk I would be willing to take. So, again, a lot of what I do is not what everyone's experience is going to be, and everyone else's experience is not what I am necessarily seeing. And you shouldn't expect that either. It's all trial and error. You want to do as much research as you can, and you want to play it safe as much as you can for more uncommon species and whatnot, like I have started to enjoy more. I do like more uncommon stuff. In fact, like the ball pythons down here in this bottom enclosure, all my enclosures in here need love. I've been concentrating on stuff outside this whole summer so far, and on other jobs and whatnot. You know, gotta get paid sometimes. So, oh, where was I going with that? Anyway, it doesn't matter. I hope this was informational. I hope you guys learned something, and yeah, go pick up a plated lizard if you can. They're pretty interesting, not that common, and, you know, plated lizard. So we'll catch you in the next one, guys. Thanks for watching.